Good morning, everyone. My name is MightyStream. I'm here today with the H.O.O.D Recovery Services. H.O.O.D stands for Hope Offered on Demand. I'm brought to you by the Hope Through Navigation organization. If you want to reach out to me, I want to remind you that you can reach me at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com. Today is a beautiful morning. The weather, there's been so many different types of weather patterns going on all over the world. I hope that you are watching the news and paying attention to the weather so that you are alerted in case there's an emergency. A lot of beautiful things as well in the heavens. So I'm encouraged. It's a beautiful day. Today is April 1st. Wow, April 1st of 2022. I am amazed. We finally have made it into the month of April, and April is typically a wonderful month for me. And so I'm excited. I'm excited about all that my God has for me this month. I'm looking forward to the day, and I hope that you're looking forward to your day as well. Let's get right into it. And it's Friday. Can you imagine that? It's Friday on April 1st. That's even more exciting. Time to relax and enjoy our families from a hard day, hard week's work. Let's get into the just for today. It says, oh, love and addiction. Oh my goodness. April 1st, love and addiction. Some of us first saw the effects of addiction on the people closest to us. We were very dependent on them to carry us through life. We felt angry, disappointed, and hurt when they found other interests, friends, and loved ones. That's taken from the basic text, page 7. Addiction affected every area of our lives. Just as we sought the drug that would make everything all right, so we sought people to fix us. We made impossible demands, driving away those who had anything of worth to offer us. Often, the only people left were those who were themselves too needy to be capable of denying our unrealistic expectations. It's no wonder that we were unable to establish and maintain healthy, intimate relationships in our addiction. Today, in recovery, we've stopped expecting drugs to fix us. If we still expect people to fix us, perhaps it's time to extend our recovery program to our relationships. We begin by admitting we have a problem, that we don't know the first thing about how to have healthy, intimate relationships. We seek out members who've had similar problems and have found relief. We talk with them and listen to what they share about this aspect of their recovery. We apply the program to all our affairs, seeking the same kind of freedom in our relationships that we find throughout our recovery. Just for today, loving relationships are within my reach. Today, I will examine the effects of addiction on my relationships so that I can begin seeking recovery. What a beautiful meditation for the month of April. Today is the beginning, right? The opening, the start of something beautiful and new, if you can grasp onto that. Today is the beginning. It's the beginning. Remember that. It's spring. It's time to enjoy new life. And in enjoying new life, sometimes we have to let some of the old life Not sometimes, all of the time. We have to let those negative things that have held us down, those negative relationships, those negative patterns that have held us back, we have to let them go. And in the process of letting them go, we may struggle, but we also have a history of positive things that have happened to us as a result of recovery to boost us, to encourage us to go forward and making the further needed adjustments in our life. So I want to encourage you today to remember that some of us, we were addicted not just to drugs, but we were addicted to the lifestyle. And the lifestyle brought certain types of relationships into our lives, unhealthy relationships. And I love the way that this piece today, it kind of integrates, right? It integrates our pattern of living, our pattern of relationships with our disease of addiction. And it says we may want to further, right? Let's see here. It said, we applied the program to all our affairs, seeking the same kind of freedom in our relationships that we find throughout our recovery. I love this. I love this because it's not saying that just because we stop using drugs, right, and we have found some freedom, that we have everything perfect. It said, no, we may want to apply this lifestyle of recovery further into our relationships. It says, if we still expect people to fix us, perhaps it's time to extend our recovery program to our relationships. And so that's a beautiful thing that we have the leeway or the room to admit that we don't have everything right. We may be covering and recovering very well in certain areas, but maybe we're finding out that we're relationship addicts. Maybe we're finding out that we're depending on people too much, and when they're not able to be there for us, we're not okay with that. We go through a form of depression or withdrawal directly related to not having that person being present. And I'm not talking about in this instance death, right, where we're grieving, but we may find ourselves grieving that they're no longer in our lives. You know, it says that up here, it says some of us first saw the effects of addiction on the people closest to us. We were dependent on them to carry us through life. We felt angry, disappointed, and hurt when they found other interests, friends, and loved ones. Yeah, and so I want to say to the newcomer and to the older person in recovery, the old timer, I want to say to you that this freedom is not free, right? I know you've heard that before, but MightyStream wants to emphasize that freedom is not free. I can think of some gifts that God gives, like uh, the breath that we breathe, right? Um, there's some other things that God gives us, but if we are not taking care of them, we can lose them. So what I'm saying, we have to expend some energy, even in the free gifts, we still have to expend some energy to maintain them. And so in reality, freedom isn't free. There's some level of sacrifice, some level of due diligence, some level of maintenance and nurturing that we all have to do with everything that is in our life, everything that we want to keep, right? The things that we're not interested in keeping, we can lop them off at any point in time. There may be some consequences for that, right? But if the end fruit, the end game is that you're going to have vitality and energy, and you have this spirit or aura about you where you are taking life on and you are passionate about what you're doing, some of those things that you have to lop off in order to get that, you can just compare them to weeds in your garden. You have to pull them up. You have to uproot those weeds. You have to get rid of them if you are planning to see a beautiful garden. Yeah. And so we want to be serious about that today. Love and addiction. We want to handle our addiction to individuals the same way we handled our addiction to drugs. We want to first admit that we have a problem. And if we have a problem, then at that point, after admitting it, we can come to believe that we can be restored to what? Sanity. And then we go on to that third step and turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understand them, right? And we can do that. God, higher power, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. I need to be free of this dead weight around me. I have to let this go because the minute this person isn't loving and kind to me, I go into a deep depression. The minute they don't call me at a certain time or respond to a text or like my post or love my post, right? I go into the schism of thinking that I have no value, right? These are cognitive behaviors that can be transformed into positive behaviors, but we have to be willing to do the work. And that's really all I'm saying is be ready to roll your sleeves up and do the work to attain and maintain the level of freedom that I believe God wants every human to experience. The ability to love and be loved, the ability to value and be valued, right? To have self-esteem, not because of who's in your corner, not because of who's loving you today, but to have self-esteem because it's who you are on the inside. You feel good about you. I just, anyone that thinks that we're born with that, we may be born with all that positivity, but at some point in time, it changes. It changes for us individuals in recovery and just individuals at large. It changes, right? If you think about that IP called the triangle of self-obsession, right? And in that IP, it says to us that we were like babies. And as babies, we come into the world and we understand that our needs are met. We cry and our needs are met. We don't really have this other form of communication other than crying and laughing, right? Or making faces when we're born. But as addicts, we seem to never grow out of that. We still are dependent on individuals to meet our needs. Everything is centered around ourselves. And we know that we have learned through the basic text that the core of our disease is self-centeredness. And so we find that we function constantly around what individuals can bring to us. But if we're going to recover, right? If we're going to come into the rooms, grab a seat and sit all the way down. And what I mean by that is to recover all the way. We need to be able to apply these spiritual principles in all our affairs. You'll be amazed how many things are resolved just by putting the principles of the 12 steps on them. And you get an opportunity to practice, to make perfect. You get an opportunity like with this reading. Now we may want to apply this level of freedom and recovery that we have found to another area in our lives. Right. And on that note, what I want to say is that's why it's important when you come into the rooms to get a sponsor and do the step work. Really, even if it takes a long time, but it's very important to get in the pattern of doing some self-analysis so that you can survey your land. You're your land, right? Your heart condition is your land, metaphorically speaking, right? You want to get in the position of surveying your land on a regular basis. And the steps, the working of the steps can do that for you. Like I can go out here in my backyard and I can survey it at a glance. I can say to my husband at a glance, those strawberries are going to be need to be uprooted this year and placed in a position where there's more sun. I can look at my yard and tell that at a glance that based on the grapes we got last year, there should be nothing else growing in that particular area of our yard. We're going to need to move some things. Oh, and by the way, I see that we have a tree. This tree is dead. And the weathers are picking up. They're saying we're going to have extreme wind in the next month or so. We want to consider getting an arborist and bringing that tree down. And yeah, that will help us out because we will get more sun, right? So I'm in a position today where, and I don't claim that I do it all by myself. My husband really has taught me quite a bit about farming and planting and growing gardens and things like that, right? So I'm in a position today where I know at a glance what belongs, what doesn't, what needs to be changed, what needs to be allowed to stay and nurtured, right? For years, we had a single apple tree in the back, and we would hardly get any apples, barring all the birds and the squirrels, right? We wouldn't get any apples. And my husband, he said, we needed another tree. And I think if we go ahead and get that other tree and put it close by to that apple tree, that the single apple tree will do better. And do you know? I think it's been a couple years now that we've had, actually, we have 3 in the back now. But when we finally joined that single apple tree up with a couple others, the fruit of it improved, right? And so I just want to say sometimes we go into recovery. Oh, I know I'm teaching today. I didn't even plan on coming up with that one, right? I know that when we go into recovery and we try to take things on by ourselves, oh, we see some fruit. But how much better is the fruit we bear when we have a couple other people, a sponsor and someone else in our network, so that when our sponsor is not available, we have someone else we can turn to, right? Sponsorship is not easy work. Let me just say that. Sponsorship is not easy work. I don't have a bell that you can jerk my chain and I'm just readily available. No, it's not easy work. And so sponsees need to understand you have to have someone else besides your sponsor in your corner, just like those apple trees. With all 3 of them, the fruit has improved. It's not where I want it to be, but it's better than just getting 1 or 2 apples. Okay. And that's the same thing in our recovery. We need to be able to apply these spiritual principles in all our affairs. And with practice, which is the point that I was making, with practice, you will be able to determine what you can keep and what needs to go relatively quickly, right? Remember, we read last week that God's will becomes our own true will, right? And so at some point in time, you get in sync. There's this synergy between you and your higher power, your sponsor, and a couple other people, 1 or 2 other people in your network. There becomes this synergy. And as a result, you become accustomed to surveying your own spiritual condition. Relationships, the basic text tells us that relationships tend to be or can be a horribly painful area. I think I'm adding a couple words, but I think you get the gist of it, right? You know that the basic text says that relationships can be a terribly painful area because we tend to do what? We tend to set unrealistic expectations on ourselves and others. And then it tells us that when these expectations aren't met, we begin to recoil, we go backwards. So we are at that point experiencing like a spiritual, emotional relapse because it says that we stop going to meetings, we stop calling our sponsor, we stop writing the steps. We kind of go backwards because there's some sort of, I don't know what to call it, but I just say like there's some sort of guilt and shame that comes when we have failed relationships because a lot of times we believe that there's enough within us to sustain it. But what we keep failing to remember is that we have absolutely no control over the next person. We can only control ourselves, our responses, our actions, our reactions, right? And sometimes we get into a situation with someone in a relationship and man, their emotional intelligence is just not what it needs to be. Like you find that you're continually bumping heads with the same person over and over about things that you've discussed repeatedly. Yeah, you want someone that you can flow with, someone that you can be there for and can be there for you. And so some of us, we just need to take a look at this meditation at the beginning of spring. Imagine how your life would be without the worry and concern of that particular relationship. Get an ideal of what that would look like in your life. Maybe you're in a relationship with someone that is extremely jealous and you don't have a lot of freedom, or you're always having to pass over your phone so they could take a look at it, or you're always being asked before you leave the door and out to go out, hit the door to go out. They want to know when you're going to come back, who you going to be with, da, 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 da. And you just find, oh, this is suffocating. I haven't cheated on this person one time or given them the reason to even think that. But because they think about cheating, they think that you think about cheating. Isn't that something? They project their own selves onto you. Yeah, imagine what life would be like without having to deal with that a single day. You want to see what it feels like? Go get a hotel room over the weekend and stay in that hotel room and tell them I'm going on a spiritual meditative weekend. My phone will be off. I'll turn it on once a day to check if there's any text messages. But in general, this is where I'm going to be. And this is the room number I'm going to be in. If there's an emergency, come to the front desk and have them get me. But otherwise, I will have my phone off. And you tell me, after you take this hiatus, you tell me, how do you feel not having to deal with that pressure from that unhealthy relationship just for a day or two? And then now you can start imagining what your life would be like without that weight, that unnecessary weight of that relationship that you become addicted to, that person you become addicted to. Yeah. So I don't think even as a married woman, I don't have I don't have that attachment to people like that anymore. I don't, and it took some letting go of some very unhealthy situations to get the mindset that I can be in a relationship, married, but single or simple minded in the sense that I keep it simple, right? The things that disturb me are the things that I know that I can take control of. And so today, I just want to encourage you. This is a long meditative recording, but I just want you to think about this just for today reading. I want you to think about it. I want you to play this again today. In fact, I want to challenge you to listen to this just for today reading a couple more times today. And I want you to survey your spiritual condition. And I want you to get out in your land, your spiritual land, and I want you to uproot, start pulling, right? Pulling up the weeds. There's going to be some weeds that are deeply rooted, and there's going to be some that you can pretty much pull them up with very little effort. But I want you to get started so that by the time what is meant to be in your garden, what is meant to be in your spiritual land is ready to grow, when the ground has been broken up and it's soft enough for it to grow out of this deep frost we've been in, I want for you to have done the work in advance of that. And then I want you to add a couple more apple trees, a couple more people to your network and watch the fruit. In the beginning of the basic text, it says something that I always try to remember. And it's on Roman numeral page 21. And it says the preface to the first edition. It says the full fruit of a labor of love lives in the harvest, and that always comes in its right season. Could it be that your labor of love, even though you had very good intentions, what you were trying to grow in your fertile ground couldn't even grow in your zone, right? You got the zone like Florida, right? Where you grow beautiful fruits and trees. And you've been trying to plant things that can only grow in colder weather, right? Or vice versa. You've been trying to plant things that don't belong in your zone, right? I don't know too many people in Michigan that grow oranges and lemons. I just don't, right? The zone. We have to consider our spiritual zone before we plant other people into our zone they don't grow there, right? They don't. So think about that. Think about that. I'm very philosophical today about this reading, but the reading to me is very, very beautiful. I love it. My name is MightyStream, and I'm here with you today with the Hood Recovery Services, Hope Offered on Demand. You can reach me at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com. And let me close with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today, please and thank you. Make it a marvelous April 1st. It's Friday, it's April 1st. I'm I'm excited and I hope you're excited. Tomorrow I'll be on the radio show with Double A from The Touch, and we'll be discussing this program briefly. It's only like a 5 to 10 minute segment, but I'm looking forward to it. And I hope that you'll be able to tune in around 12:30 Standard Eastern Time, April 2nd. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow morning. Just for today, make it a great April 1st.